Evolutionary psychology, as we shall see, is tightly bound up with culture. To understand the evolution of culture, we first need to explain how we developed our big brain. Without increased brain power, it's unlikely that human culture would ever have developed beyond the level of modern chimpanzees. Whilst there's good evidence that our species and its forebears evolved ever larger brains, the question of why they did so is much harder to answer. We do know that it must have resulted from selection pressures and that the process involved pre-existing traits, but that's about all. So far as I've been able to tell, there's no definitive evidence to explain the exact process. However, there are a number of possibilities. The following, then, is a just so story. It's not even the only such story that's been proposed, but it is, however, the one that seems most plausible to me. It's a speculative explanation for the currently known facts, and those facts undoubtedly will be added to as time grows on, and as our understanding increases, our explanations will improve. That's the scientific process. We haven't reached the end of our journey of discovery yet. After all, it is only 2019. What is culture? In this context, culture means shared beliefs, rituals, understandings, and explanations. That's not rocket science. It would be hard to imagine any sizable human group that didn't have at least some cultural traits. The real question isn't why humans developed culture, but why and how our ancestors evolved the ability to do so in the first place. It seems that many changes were necessary to make human culture possible. Habitat changed. Our ancestors became increasingly well adapted for life in the open and less well adapted for life among the trees. Brain volume increased significantly. Technology developed and changed from basic processed tools such as flint spear points and arrowheads to axes, jewellery, even boats. Hunting changed. There's evidence of much larger game animals being butchered as the species evolves. These things must have resulted from selection pressures favouring individuals best suited to cope with change. Collectively, they represent significant advantages to those who possessed even some, if not all, of the necessary adaptations. The gene pool was changing. It seems to me that the most important selection pressures were group size, communication and language needs, the need for larger amounts of food, the need for cooperation to sustain large groups, the need for cooperation to ensure the survival of large groups, the need to develop shared memes to facilitate cooperation, and the need to develop explanations to foster group cohesion and outgroup alienation. Many of the mental modules we'll discuss later in this series are just refined versions and adaptations resulting from these very pressures. Existing traits available for natural selection via directional and sexual pressures seem likely to have included rudimentary communication via mating songs and dance. Studies of our closest genetic relatives, chimpanzees and bonobos, show a tendency to communicate via a range of sounds and gestures, especially during courtship. Gibbons, which pair for life, advertise their relationships to others via song, and studies have shown that they also have different calls, rudimentary language representing different kinds of threat. All these things represent viable precursors of language. Assuming, as seems likely, that similar abilities were present in our early hominin ancestors, we have the raw material for natural selection to work with. But there's a problem. For sophisticated language to develop, the animal would need a big brain. However, to build a big brain, the animal needs plenty of protein, and obtaining plenty of protein means effective cooperation and hunting of big game, and cooperative hunting of big game requires communication, which requires a big brain. Which came first, the chicken or the egg? It's almost catch-22. This was a major quandary for evolutionists for many years. It seemed as though big brain development was impossible, and yet it happened. We have the fossils to prove it. What we didn't have was an explanation. But now we have. Cooperation requires theory of mind. That means an awareness of self and of others. It also requires an understanding that others may see things differently from ourselves. Without these two insights, teamwork and effective cooperation, big game hunting would have been impossible for humans, and yet for years it was believed that no other primate species exhibited even rudimentary theory of mind, until another set of primates revealed not only significant theory of mind, but also remarkable cooperation, especially related to aggression. Once again, we see the emergence of another of the elements needed for cultural development. We can assume that our pre-human ancestors possessed the same rudimentary characteristics before their big brain developed. So how do they come together? Well, at first, it seems complicated, but not so. As our ancestors left the forest and ventured out into the grasslands, the need for effective warning systems became pressing. Natural selection and predation favoured the best communicators, who developed more and more towards sophisticated language. And improved language facilities, cooperation facilitates more effective hunting. More effective hunting meant more protein, which allowed better brain development, leading to better communication. The mechanics of childbirth provided a new problem for the evolving apes. Bipedalism, walking upright, was necessary for survival out of the woodlands, but it meant a narrow birth canal. That meant that bipedal hominins need to be born before their brains are fully developed. Otherwise, their heads will be too large for the birth process. This results in extended periods of helplessness for newborns, a characteristic that exists in humans even today, and creates serious selection pressure. Only those babies that are well looked after survive. This explains why, compared with most other primates, human males invest far more of their time and energy and resources into nurturing their young. Chimpanzee males, our closest relatives, typically don't even know which offspring are theirs. Human males generally do. And they participate. We are a high male parental investment, MPI, species. The extended helplessness of human infants creates a significant selection pressure. Empathic and cooperative males provided the best nutrition and protection. Females that selected effective providers and nurturers as mates are more likely to see their young make it to maturity and produce offspring of their own. The genes will survive. Consequently, males and females are subject to directional and sexual selective pressure favouring empathy, high parental investment and cooperation. This selection pressure over many generations imbued our ancestors with the ingredients for social culture and the means to fuel a big brain. The big brain, in turn, built upon these qualities to facilitate even greater technologies, communication and social interaction. This remarkable collection of selection pressures and adaptation allowed our species to develop step by step into the large societies with sophisticated cultures we know today. I'm Stuart Sorensen, and this is Mind the Care training. If you found this video useful or helpful in any way, please feel free to share it around and click the like button. Oh yes, and while you're at it, if you click on the little character icon that's on your screen right now, you can subscribe to the channel and you won't miss any other videos. Thank you for watching.